Fellas, what happened to Assassin's Creed? It's 2007. A trailer drops showcasing a hooded figure making his way through a crowded street. As he approaches the gallows, he pulls a crossbow to take out a guard, dodges a sword swing, takes out guard number 2, leaps, and out of his sleeve, a blade appears. The world around him moves in slow motion as he strikes his victim. He escapes through the city, being hunted down until he's trapped in a corner, only then to vanish without a trace. It was probably the coolest thing I've ever seen depicted in a video game in my whole life. But also, to be fair, the only thing I played prior was Call of Duty and Toontown. But that was only the beginning. Assassin's Creed was unlike any other game of its time. It was different, unique, action-packed, stealthy, not to mention the kind of cultural impact it left on gamers everywhere. And of course, with the success of the first, a sequel came out, and it was better than the first in nearly every way possible. And then another sequel, banger after banger. It seemed like they couldn't miss, until they did. It was right around here that they probably should have quit while they were ahead, and they probably would have if it didn't continue to bring in more and more money every year. Right after Assassin's Creed 4, it seems the favorability of the franchise continued to decline. And today, we're gonna look at why. So, let's figure that out. Let's start with when they were good. And for argument's sake, we're gonna leave out all of the dreaded Nintendo DS games. It'd be unfair to compare anything to that masterpiece. Assassin's Creed 1 was the first game and set as a good baseline for where the franchise was going to go. It had all of your basic fundamental Assassin's Creed mechanics such as sneaking, hiding, assassinating, trailing missions. Trailing missions. It followed Altair through his origins of becoming an assassin and everything that envelops. So from here on out, if an Assassin's Creed game is good, we have to argue that it's better than that one. And if it's bad, it's because it's worse than that one. So let's begin. Assassin's Creed 2. Wow, this is way better than the first one in every way possible. A better story, a better main character, a better world map to explore, main missions, side missions, mechanics. Even Mario is in it.
It's a me, Mario!
It gets me every time! It's truly what a sequel should be and considered by many to be the gold standard, as it's in nearly everyone's top 3 for best Assassin's Creed games. Although I will say that the one downside is that you can't take 3 steps without every guard from here to Malaysia wanting to track you down. Sometimes I'm just trying to get to the next story mission and I'm being bombarded by an entire street gang. Wait, why are these? No! But otherwise, very good game. But what follows that? I guess we'll take a look at Assassin's Creed 3. No? Truth be told, I'd put this on the exact same level as Assassin's Creed 2, seeing as it's a continuation of the same story with the same character. Call it Assassin's Creed 2, 2. And it was a fantastic game, built off of everything from the first, given a great story, great mechanics, and a fantastic gaming experience. Okay, well surely the next one has to be Assassin's Creed 3, right? Huh? Assassin's Creed Revelations is more of the last two, except now Ezio is old, so he moves a little slower and has to take frequent breaks on account of his bad back and arthritis. Except for when it's not. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. And that's just the first 30 minutes of the game. Somewhere in there it becomes a tower defense game, but I chop that up to Ezio just being too old to fight his own battles.
This used to be so easy.
It was meant to be a coherent trilogy that was shoved inside an incoherent trilogy. Still a really solid game. But the Ezio story has been told, so players were asking for something new. And boy did they hear our request. Because here comes Assassin's Creed 3. Finally. Imagine how stoked I was to see Assassin's Creed tackle something so familiar. The idea of having an assassin be on the inside of the American Revolutionary War was such a unique and captivating idea. Think of the endless possibilities. Being at the Battle of Bunker Hill, the Boston Massacre, the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere, the Boston Tea Party. You get to experience all of those boring things that you had to learn about in 9th grade firsthand in a very exciting way. But there is one major flaw to the game. besides the boat missions. None of this happens until about halfway through the game. Over 40% of the game is dedicated to setup. That's a lot of percents. And for a game that only has 12 sequences, the first 3 of them you don't even play as the main character. And having 4+ hours of your game where essentially nothing interesting is happening isn't good for your game. But then everything after that, oh boy! Yeah, so this part of the game is like a 2 out of 10, and then this part of the game is like a 9 out of 10. There was an obvious slow start, but some really good ideas here. So how do they top taking you into such an iconic moment in time and reliving history? Remember how I said Assassin's Creed 2 was always in the top 3 of everybody's lists? Well, Assassin's Creed 4 is usually one of the other 2 spots. You don't even technically play as an assassin. You play as a pirate who killed an assassin at the very beginning of the game, and then stole his clothes and pretended to be an assassin until the very end of the game where he was like, yeah, this seems pretty cool actually, I think I'll join your club. It was such a unique take to the series where you didn't play as an actual assassin that they ended up trying it again, and it just wasn't as good the second time. And for many people, this was peak. This was as good as Assassin's Creed got. It did a pirate game better than most other pirate games and sprinkled in some amazing Assassin's Creed elements, giving you a story to invest in and characters to cheer for. Well, except for this guy.
Yar, matey.
Yeah, I should probably quickly address the elephant in the room though. One of the ways Ubisoft tried to connect all these stories together is by claiming all of these assassins are related and descendants of your main character, Desmond Miles, who is as ugly as he is stupid and has the personality of a tuna fish sandwich.
Ooh, wonder who I get to kill today.
Nobody, and I mean nobody, cares for this modern day real world story, and I think all of these games could have benefited with just cutting it out, which eventually they did. But we'll get to that. But this gameplay aspect pretty much lowers all of these games down by like 1 number grade. So Assassin's Creed was never really perfect to begin with, even at its best, but what caused it to go so much more downhill? What was its true decline? Well, let's talk about the Dark Ages. Now, the Dark Ages didn't last too long. Ubisoft quickly picked up that they were doing something wrong and shifted rather fast, so there's only a few games that came out during this time. But wowee, these games are stinkers. We'll start with Assassin's Creed Liberation, seeing how it's like the forgotten stepchild since it released alongside Assassin's Creed 3. You play as a woman assassin in the 1700s Louisiana, where you break free slaves from plantations. It wasn't renownedly loved, but it also wasn't renownedly hated. It was just kinda there. Although it was a new assassin and a new story, it acted more like DLC for Assassin's Creed 3. Ubisoft kinda leaned into that too by not declaring this as a mainline release and rather just a fun little side game. But since there's animal abuse in it, it gets put up with the bad games. And it looks like Ubisoft agreed because they ended up pulling the game from all digital markets back in 2022. The only way you can get it now is if you get it bundled with Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered. Although it is pretty cool to watch these dudes get beat up by a girl in a dress. In 2014, with the new age of consoles being released, we had a split between those who could afford the next generation of gaming and the normies. Like me. In modern day, they simply release the new game for both generations of consoles, where the new generation will have better graphics, frame rate, and enhancements, but that wasn't really the norm in 2014. So instead of trying to make an Assassin's Creed game for both consoles, they rushed out 2 games for each console. And as Ron Swanson would say,
never half-ass 2 things. Whole-ass 1 thing.
And it was pretty obvious in this case. But let's start with the game for the older generation of consoles, Assassin's Creed Rogue. I mentioned that Assassin's Creed Liberation is basically just DLC for Assassin's Creed 3, but even more so, Assassin's Creed Rogue is just DLC for Assassin's Creed 4. Like literally, most of the gameplay is just boat stuff. But even worse, since the story is blander and the game introduces nothing new. It's a very forgettable title to the point that I just played it and I still can't tell you what it's about. It was the afterthought game in an afterthought year and just nothing special at all. Okay, so it's dull and boring and unimaginative. The other one can't be any worse, right? Right? So I know most of the video is building up how bad this game is, and historically, yes, this was considered one of the most underwhelming Assassin's Creeds in history. The bugs and the glitches really tarnished the Assassin's Creed name, and even in my short time recording to get footage for this video, I encountered a handful of silly bugs myself. Yeah, this happened to me live. This is while I'm trying to get footage of the game. This is still a problem in 2023. It was widely considered so bad that it consequently got people to not buy the next title, regardless of how good or not that was. But my hot take that you may or may not agree with is that I think Unity is actually a pretty good game.
That's enough of that, you degenerate!
If you can ignore the visual bugs that, let's be honest, don't usually impact the gameplay, then you have a very fun story with fun characters and all of France to explore during the French Revolution. Side fact here, in 2019, when Notre Dame burned and had serious structural damage done to it, Assassin's Creed Unity was actually used to help as a baseline for reconstruction because, although the model in the game isn't exactly the same, there was a lot of hands-on research done when designing the in-game model, and I thought that was pretty cool. Okay, back to the video. And it possibly has some of the best visuals of any Assassin's Creed game in the whole franchise. If anything, its true downfall is that the developers never had a chance to fix it. Another game that would have suffered the same fate was Cyberpunk 2077. It had a lot of issues upon release that caused a lot of backlash.
From what I understand, playing Cyberpunk on a PS4 is like this.
But the difference is, with Cyberpunk, the devs had a chance to fix it and made it right. Now that game is phenomenal. With Assassin's Creed, however, their developers had to leave the game to rot while they worked on next year's entry, and it never got a chance to be what it could have been. Also, it had co-op missions, and those were pretty mid, so they never tried co-op missions again. But unfortunately, it will always stand as one of the worst games, regardless of how good it could have been. With their name tarnished though, Ubisoft still tried again the following year with Assassin's Creed Syndicate. And granted, it was an attempt at something new, providing a brother and sister assassin that you can switch between, and the lack of love this game got definitely wasn't from the advertisements, because to this day, every time I watch the cinematic trailer, I get goosebumps with how cool it looks. It just didn't unfortunately play that way. And truth be told, it wasn't a terrible game. It had great reviews. It just also wasn't anything too new or special. Traversing England and making a gang is a really cool idea, so how did they make it just so boring? It really could be the players had just had enough at this point. It's been 8 years with the same game mechanics, and after all that time, they hit a peak and couldn't surpass it. So where do they go from here? It was time for something different. And thus came the RPGs. Ubisoft decided that the entire Assassin's Creed story has been told, so they decided to stray away and work on a new project under the RPG genre. And then slap the Assassin's Creed name on it anyways. So what's the deal with these games though? They're not bad, right? They're just not Assassin's Creed. They have small little references and side stories alluding to Assassin's Creed, but to slap it on the main title, Assassin's Creed: The Middle of the Desert, was kinda derivative. Okay, but for all it's worth, and you can hate me for saying this, these games were actually quite good. The first one that we got was the one to really change up the formula. Assassin's Creed Oranges, which is aptly named because everything is orange. A lot of the old Assassin's Creed mechanics are there, like sneaking, hiding, and of course assassinating, but it offers a new way of playing by leveling up, adding skills and abilities, and mixing and matching different weapons and armor, which is totally a new and unique idea for the franchise and not something previously introduced in Assassin's Creed Syndicate, but put in under a rebrand so that the new concepts could be given a genuine chance. No! But even so, the new open world and a new explored area was a breath of fresh air and a welcome change to the Assassin's Creed franchise, even if it had nothing to do with the Assassin's Creed. But strip away the name and it's fundamentally a really good game. The follow-up a year later was Assassin's Creed Odyssey. You play as a Spartan through Greece and take down this funny Illuminati cult while also tracking down and killing your father. It plays very similarly to Origins, with just a couple different details here and there. Some I love, and some I do not love nearly as much because of how inconvenient they are. Truth be told, I really didn't like this game the first time I played it because healing wasn't an integrated mechanic, and rather something you had to learn through the skill tree, which isn't a huge deal if you know what to do and go right for it when leveling up. But when you don't know that, however, you get caught in your first big battle with no way to heal and dying over and over and over and over until you want to quit, like I did, for 2 years. I eventually came back to Odyssey knowing better and had a blast with it. And my absolutely favorite idea from Odyssey is how much they lean into so much of the Greek mythology. You get to fight the Cyclops, you face the Minotaur in the Labyrinth, and the DLC takes you to Atlantis. It's truly an immersive experience if you give it the time. However, the need to do every single side quest in the game just to get a high enough level to be able to progress is really annoying. Sometimes I just want to go through the story and not try to have sex with every single person I pass by. A cuck. And once again, there isn't very much Assassin's Creed in a game called Assassin's Creed, but it really is a good game nonetheless. Ubisoft took a couple years after that one to really make sure their next non-Assassin's Creed game was polished. And that's when they released Valhalla, an RPG putting you in the heart of the Viking Age where you get to pillage and plunder and be a Viking and not an assassin, but it was a lot of fun being a Viking. And maybe this was just me, but all the individual stories that you experienced while playing the game were all so captivating. I couldn't put it down. I was immersed in every detail of these characters' lives. And although it doesn't nearly lean as far into the mystical and mythology of its predecessor, there is still enough uniqueness to make it enjoyable. So with this new trio of games, it seems like Assassin's Creed was back on track, right? But there was still one major problem. Although they were good games, they weren't Assassin's Creed. So that brings us to today. September 10th, 2022. Ubisoft held a Nintendo Direct of sorts, announcing a whole new reboot again to Assassin's Creed. A promise to bring it back to its glory and let people experience the old Assassin's Creed feel that they've been craving since Black Flag. 4 new titles were showcased and announced to release over the next several years. Mirage to be released in 2023, which had a full trailer for us to get excited about, and then small details about the next 3 games to follow. But to be fair, one of them is expected to be a mobile game, so that doesn't really count, but 3 new Assassin's Creed games is nothing to shake a stick at all, especially considering the details that they shared. Mirage, taking place in the slums of Baghdad in the 9th century. Codename Hex, which appears to surround the witch trials of the 16th century. And Codename Red, taking place in Japan, perhaps involving samurais, and completely disregarding that Ghost of Tsushima did it first and potentially better. But this was exciting, and now with Assassin's Creed Mirage finally released, we can get a feel for where this franchise is going, and if it's too far gone to be recovered. So I played this game the day it came out and finished it in about 14 hours, which honestly feels about right when it comes to these types of games. Not nearly as quick as the Rush Together Rogue, but not nearly as drawn out as some of the RPG games.
They meant the old ruins just south of here.
Ruins just south of here.
But how does the gameplay fare? Is it back to the original feel and quests of Assassin's Creed of old, or is it still following suit of the RPG style of the recent installments? Honestly, a bit of both. The story is driven by the formula of tracking down members of the Order and following clues that lead you from one member to the next. Very similar to something like Assassin's Creed Odyssey. But the actual story takes you through the creed of assassins, focusing around the supernatural artifacts from old. It's the best of each side of these genres, and taking away the annoyances that made the older titles not as good. You're no longer gatekept by levels, forcing you to do meaningless side tasks just to be able to become powerful enough to finally take on the next quest. And there's so many colorful characters that draw you into each individual smaller story as they all interweave into the big reveal. This kid's gonna die. Oh! So just because the first mission is a tailing mission doesn't mean you have to give up on the game right away. And of course the game has its share of bugs and silly moments, but I love the extra details and care added in as well.
Oh my god, this is the best game ever! Oh, the cat's gone!
And the best part is, in a world where every new game is $70, they weren't asking for $70. They weren't even asking for $60. This game was $50, and well worth it considering some of the other $50 games being released right now. Yeah, this game, also $50, released the same week. But the price of a game nor its length have ever been a direct factor on whether it's good or not. I can say from an objective standpoint that it's still fun. So in my humble opinion, as a lover of video games and a Toontown addict, I believe that Assassin's Creed is back on the right track. I don't think Assassin's Creed fans really understand why they're upset. The franchise is old, and I know if they keep doing what they did in the past, people would claim that it's the same thing over and over again. But you make too much changes and people are going to complain nonetheless. There really is no way to win when it comes to this argument, so the best you can do is make a fun video game, which is what I believe they've done here. as long as the next few games are anything like this, we might just be back to looking forward to them once again. So if you agree, that's great, and if you disagree, please feel free to let me know and leave a comment. I'd love to see them. Otherwise, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Please be sure to subscribe.